The high-speed moving car had an accident. They got out to check. No one was inside the car. Clive took out his phone to call for help. At that moment, an alien appeared in the dark. He signaled Clive to hang up the phone. Instead, Clive got frightened by him. This alien's name is Paul. He has been living on Earth for 60 years. He just escaped from a secret base. Due to the length of his legs, he couldn't reach the brake, resulting in the accident. He and Graham carried Clive back into the car, only to find out that Clive wet his pants. After leaving the scene, agents discovered the crashed vehicle. On the ground, they found a puddle of liquid, dipped their fingers in it, tasted it, and promptly spat it out. A bird hit their car, scaring them all. Approaching the bird's corpse, they found it dead. Paul rubbed his hands together, then cradled the bird in his palm, his expression turning somewhat pained, as if he were constipated. At that moment, miraculously, the bird came back to life. Graham and Clive were astonished, but in the next second, Paul swallowed the bird. He just didn't like eating dead birds. To help Paul get home, they embarked on a journey across the United States. In an RV park, they met Ruth. She is a devout Christian. Paul didn't want to be discovered by her, so he hid. Ruth preached her religious beliefs, which conflicted entirely with Paul's views. He argued with her in the bathroom, emerging angrily. Ruth was frightened by him. To prevent her from calling the police when she woke up, they decided to kidnap her. But before that, they needed to retrieve Clive's passport. Paul stealthily entered Ruth's house, and just as he got the passport, Ruth's father discovered Paul. He immediately pulled out a weapon and started chasing Paul. Paul escaped back to the car with the passport, leaving behind his portrait. Matthew looked at the portrait with anger. Ruth, upon waking up, remained terrified. She knelt down and started singing a song. Paul reached into her head with his hand, imparting his knowledge to her. She fell to the ground again, and Paul looked very exhausted. When she woke up again, her personality had changed. She became more open, humorous, and more receptive to new things. Paul put his hand on Ruth's eyes, transferring her ioma into his own eyes. Paul's eyeballs turned white, while Ruth's eyes were healed. The next moment, Paul's eyes returned to normal. At the next RV park, Ruth called her father, but unbeknownst to her, the agents were listening. Realizing their location was exposed, they immediately left. Passing by a store, Clive was attracted to a toy knife. He and Paul entered the store with the intention of taking the toy knife, but the agents chasing the alien also arrived at the store. Paul quickly pretended to be a plastic mannequin. The agent picked up a magazine to read, and his colleague urged him to leave. He reluctantly put down the magazine, but remained interested in the alien mannequin. He made a gun-throwing motion, trying to scare the plastic mannequin. Paul remained calm, not frightened by him. The agent didn't give up, walked up to the mannequin, pulled down its zipper, and stuck his hand into its crotch. Paul couldn't take it anymore. He finally spoke up, insulting the agent. The princess is performing on the stage. The king on the side happily enjoys. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to something else. A flea jumps onto his hand. He reaches out to swat the flea, but misses. The flea jumps around on him, more entertaining than the princess's performance. He joyfully plays with the flea. The princess saw his behavior, very surprised. Not until applause erupts from the audience. Only then did the king know that the show was over. He catches the flea, claps his hands casually, then hastily leaves. He observes the flea with a magnifying glass, discovers that the flea likes blood, then puts it in a glass box. It becomes the king's pet, growing rapidly, able to easily pull a toy carriage. Under the king's careful care, the flea's size has become like that of a small dog, until one night, the king anxiously calls for a doctor, pulls the doctor into the room. When the doctor sees the creature, he is terrified, attempts to diagnose the flea. Unfortunately, the flea has reached the end of his life. The flea's death saddens the king greatly, for rediscover the joy of life. He recalls his daughter's wish. The princess hopes to get married, so she can leave the castle. He decides to help his daughter find a husband. The princess hears this news and is very happy. Curious about who will be her husband, the king says he doesn't know yet. He displayed the flea's leather. Whoever can guess what animal's leather this is will be able to marry the princess. Nobles gather in the palace. A man reaches out to touch the leather, gives the wrong answer. The king waves his hand for the next one. He very confident, thinking no one can get it right. At this moment, another man walks to the leather. He very gentlemanly. The princess smiled when she saw him. Seems quite satisfied with him. She hopes this man can give the correct answer. She urgently wants to know the answer. The king doesn't want to tell her, but under the princess's plea, he still reveals it. It's the leather of a flea. The princess is very surprised. The man carefully observes the leather. Then he has an answer. He says it's manatee leather. The princess looks at the king, hoping the king lets this man pass. Unfortunately, the king is very fair. The princess is very disappointed. At this moment, a man with a fierce appearance enters the palace. Guards stop him. The king hastily said everyone has a chance. He seems overly confident, Thinking no one can guess it, the man walks to the leather, then smells the leather with his nose. The princess hopes that this man will not answer correctly either, but the man's gaze is very determined. He gives the correct answer. Flee. The king's smile disappears from his face. He looks at his daughter. The princess breaks down. She ran out of the palace crying, then runs towards the terrace. She can't accept this fact. Marrying this man is worse than jumping from here. The king follows. He apologizes to the princess first, then says some nonsense. Finally, the princess compromises. She sadly leaves the castle, then follows the man. A man mistakenly grabs the wrong remote control. A toy helicopter flies towards him and hits him on the head. Intense pain makes him scream loudly. He becomes extremely angry. Because of this incident, he decides to search for a universal remote control. Upon reaching the supermarket, he asks the sales clerk, but is treated like a fool. Indignant, he continues his search. Passing by a mattress, he lies down directly and takes a rest. After a while, he discovers a door nearby. Curiously, he enters and finds a strange attendant named Morty. Michael asks him if there is a universal remote control. Morty indicates that they have the latest stock of remotes. They enter the warehouse, retrieve the remote from a container, and Morty introduces its functions to Michael. Michael inquires about the price, worried that he might not have enough money. Luckily, the remote hasn't been entered into the inventory yet, and Morty decides to give it to Michael for free. Believing he is a good person, fearful it might be a trap, Michael questions Morty's intentions. Morty advises him not to view the world so darkly. Michael accepts the remote, and as he leaves, Morty warns him that the remote cannot be returned. He tests the universal remote control and successfully turns on the television. He praises himself as a genius. At that moment, his wife approaches him for a conversation. He presses the pause button on the remote, and the TV pauses. He rambles on without realizing his wife is also paused. Turning around to look at her, he finds her staring at him silently. He presses play on the remote, allowing his wife to return to her room to rest. The wife resumes normal activities and goes back to her room to rest. The barking of a dog disturbs him. He tries to quiet the dog down, but it continues to bark incessantly. Angry, he grabs the remote, frantically clicking the volume down button. With the control of the remote, the dog's barking gets quieter until it disappears completely. Attempting to increase the volume, the dog's voice returns to normal. Confused about what just happened, he thinks it may be hallucinating. He takes the dog outside and lets it relieve itself. Feeling impatient during the wait, looking at the remote in his hand, he presses the fast forward button, and the dog completes its business at an incredibly fast pace. He attends a business banquet with the remote control. Investors are dissatisfied with his design drawings. They go aside for a small meeting. Through the translation function of the remote, he learns about the investor's desired solution. After returning to the dining table, he dismisses his crappy design drawings and proposes a new plan to the investors. They are delighted with the new proposal. Michael successfully secures investment for the company. Upon returning to the office, he expects a promotion, but is told it will happen only after the deal is closed. However, he has already shared the promotion news with his wife and spent a considerable amount of money celebrating. Michael is furious, presses the pause button on the remote, and then slaps Amber's face hard. After Amber returns to normal, he feels intense pain in his head, but then smiles again. Michael is still not satisfied, presses the pause button again, walks up to the table, and releases a significant amount of poisonous gas toward Amber's face using his buttocks. Then he lets Amber return to normal. Amber smells the odor, thinking someone added feces to his lunch. This is a bionic woman. Wifelike company can customize exquisite appearance and perfect body according to customers' requirements. It only costs $999 to bring her home. She also has a major advantage, which is that she cannot get pregnant. If you think this is a drawback, Wifelike company also provides a solution. After purchasing the product, you only need to spend half the price to buy a bionic baby. If you are an internal employee, you can even get it for free. William is a police officer. His wife passed away not long ago. To overcome grief, he came to Wifelike company and customized a bionic wife. She has a very pretty face and an enticing figure. He eagerly took her home and performed basic settings on her. He named her Meredith. She perfectly replaced his wife. Meredith's appearance and personality are exact replicas of his wife, and she is well aware of William's lifestyle. Just activated, William asked her how she felt. She looked around the house and felt very familiar with it. Now comes the most important testing phase. With Meredith's guidance, William starts doing his favorite thing. Their foreplay is straightforward, just passing through authorization and setting desired levels. After a series of settings, Meredith finally responds. She throws her clothes on the floor. 3 minutes later, William has consumed a substantial amount of energy. Meredith's battery is also depleted. She returns to the charging dock to replenish her energy. In the morning, to help William regain strength, Meredith thoughtfully prepares breakfast. However, she forgets his favorite bacon. Feeling guilty, she carefully makes a pillow for him. She gives the pillow to William. William doesn't seem to like the pillow. When he expresses liking the gift, Meredith smiles happily and leans in to kiss William. However, in that evening, William secretly takes the pillow and throws it in the trash. The next night, Meredith can't find the pillow. She starts making a second one. When William sees the pillow, he feels disgusted. Meredith's battery is depleted again. She is recharging. To pass the time, she activates self-exploration mode, but the system rejects her. Feeling lost, she lies down and enters dream mode. In the dream, a man appears in front of her. The man asks her to randomly choose a video. Meredith picks a video, and the scene changes. It's the place where Meredith and William had their first date. But William is not there. Instead, a masked man is there. He tells her that she has forgotten many things. Excitedly, he urges her to remember quickly. Just then, William wakes up Meredith from the dream. She tells William that someone tried to deceive her. William senses her abnormality and decides to send her back to Wifelike company for a reset. There are many bionic women like her here. They have all been sent back for resets. Not for the first time. They tell Meredith how to avoid the reset and how to retrieve memories. Knowing the truth, she covers William's head with that pillow.